the United States. Among the familiar copper tones of Lincoln cents, there exists a series that draws the attention of collectors not through flash or rarity alone, but through the subtleties of its history and manufacture. The 1968 Lincoln 1 cent, bearing the S mint mark, sits within this understated yet compelling narrative. At first glance, it is an ordinary coin, part of a continuing tradition that began with the Lincoln cent of 1909, yet its story is quietly layered with nuance that only a careful observer might appreciate. The year 1968 was one of transformation for the nation and, subtly, for its coinage. The United States Mint in San Francisco was operating in a period of both constraint and innovation. Production had to balance public demand, technological limitations, and the precise standards of the Treasury. For the Lincoln cent, this meant that while millions were struck, each bore marks that were distinctive and product of die usage, striking pressure, and the inevitable variances of human oversight. To the casual eye, one 1968's penny might appear indistinguishable from another, yet collectors understand that even a slight difference in die alignment or luster can alter a coin's story. Professional collectors and numismatists often speak of condition sensitivity when discussing these cents. Unlike coins whose rarity alone dictates attention, the 1968's Lincoln cent gains interest through a delicate interplay of preservation and historical context. Many coins entered circulation quickly, exchanged from hand to hand, leaving only a fraction that retained the crispness of the original strike. In examining the surfaces of these coins today, one can trace the journey of copper over decades, small abrasions, subtle toning, and the faint echoes of press marks. These features tell a history of use and survival, far beyond what a simple glance might reveal. It is important to note that collector interest is rarely static. The behavior of the market, while sometimes discussed in terms of value, is more revealing when viewed as a reflection of perception. Coins like the 1968's Lincoln cent are appreciated not for sudden gain, but for their ability to engage with time, to serve as a tangible connection to a particular era of American minting. Collectors who approach these coins with an eye for authenticity and documentation understand the significance of professional grading. Certification, while not the sole arbiter of quality, provides a framework through which historical and physical details can be assessed and preserved, and helps maintain the narrative integrity of a coin across generations. Equally significant is the psychological dimension of collecting. For many who inherit coin collections, the 1968's penny represents more than a piece of metal. It is a vessel for memory, a link to familial decisions, and a silent observer of decades gone by. The choice to preserve it, to examine its details, or to research its production history reflects a human desire to engage with continuity and craftsmanship. Observers often report a quiet satisfaction in discovering subtle variances, a slightly off-center strike, a unique luster, or the faintest impression of a die polish line. These nuances, invisible to the casual passerby, are precisely what sustain long-term interest. Historically, the late 1960s were a period of change within the mint itself. Adjustments in alloy composition, the introduction of more automated processes, and the shifting demands of circulation contributed to subtle irregularities in production. The San Francisco Mint, historically responsible for proof and collector-focused issues, produced these coins with a precision that aimed to satisfy both public expectation and collector scrutiny. Yet, even with careful controls, the realities of mass production left traces, many differences that modern numismatists can detect through magnification, lighting, and comparison with contemporaneous issues. It is within these fine points that the 1968's Lincoln cent gains its quietly compelling identity. The coin also serves as a reminder of common misconceptions among newer collectors. A frequent assumption is that mint mark alone dictates interest or importance. While the S designation signifies origin from San Francisco, it is not, in isolation, a marker of rarity or value. The interplay of condition, provenance, and historical context shapes a coin's narrative far more than the letter stamped beneath the date. Experienced collectors recognize this, approaching each piece with a combination of patience, knowledge, and a willingness to look beyond surface impressions. Moreover, the 1968's Lincoln Cent invites reflection on the nature of long-term collecting. It challenges the notion of immediate return, instead rewarding those who cultivate attention to detail, who appreciate subtleties in toning, strike, and preservation. This is a coin that demands observation over speculation, and in doing so, it fosters a deeper understanding of mint practices, of American history, and of the collector's own engagement with the past. Even decades after its production, the coin quietly asserts its presence in collections, reminding us that true numismatic interest often grows in tandem with time. Subtle patterns of wear on the 1968's cent offer a glimpse into the social life of currency. Each scratch, each point of smoothing, is evidence of circulation and use, echoing hands that held it, transactions it facilitated, and the economic conditions of its era. Coins are not inert objects, they are witnesses to history. For the Lincoln Cent, with its storied design and enduring symbolism, this historical witness carries a particular resonance. Collectors, whether motivated by scholarship or heritage, find value in tracing these stories, a understanding that condition, while measurable, is only part of the narrative. An essential aspect of sustained collector interest lies in the coin's accessibility. Unlike extremely rare or experimental issues, the 1968's Lincoln Cent is available to dedicated enthusiasts in a way that permits careful study and comparison. This accessibility encourages informed observation, enabling collectors to notice die varieties, luster differences, and subtle minting anomalies. It also reinforces the notion that engagement with coins is not a transactional act but an investigative process, one that rewards curiosity, patience, and attention to detail. Even the tools and processes used to assess these coins contribute to the broader understanding of their historical and numismatic significance. Magnification, careful lighting, and methodical comparison allow collectors to interpret features that might otherwise be overlooked. Documentation, whether through photography, notation, or grading, transforms ephemeral details into a record that can be studied and appreciated long after the coin leaves immediate view. This process exemplifies the meticulous approach that serious collectors bring to their craft, a combination of historical awareness, technical observation, and personal discernment. It is worth reflecting that market interest, while often discussed in monetary terms, is ultimately a reflection of human engagement. Coins like the 1968's Lincoln Cent sustain attention not because of sudden notoriety, but because they occupy a space in the numismatic landscape where history, design, and human interaction converge. The coin does not need to be rare in the dramatic sense to hold significance. Its value is measured in the depth of understanding it inspires, in the continuity it represents, and in the careful attention it invites. In examining the 1968's Lincoln Cent, collectors are participating in a lineage of observation and appreciation that extends back decades. They are engaging with the choices made by mint officials, the technology of the presses, and the subtle effects of time on copper surfaces. They are acknowledging that every coin carries multiple layers of meaning, the historical context of its creation, the physical evidence of its survival, and the intellectual exercise of interpreting its details. Ultimately, the story of the 1968's Lincoln Cent is one of quiet endurance. It is a coin that rewards patience, informed observation, and historical awareness. Its significance is found not in instant recognition or sensational claims, but in the careful study of its surfaces, the tracing of its production history, and the understanding that collector attention is both deliberate and evolving. In this way, the coin serves as a reminder that numismatics is, above all, a conversation across time, a dialogue between the past and the present, mediated through objects that continue to intrigue, educate, and connect those who take the time to look closely. There is a quiet gravity to certain coins, a subtle presence that persists not because of loud declarations or headlines, but because of the meticulous attention of those who have studied them for decades. Among these quietly revered pieces stands the 1970 Lincoln cent from the Denver Mint, a coin that, at first glance, might appear unremarkable. Its coppery surface, familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, and unassuming D-mint mark suggest only the ordinary, and yet, for collectors who have dedicated themselves to understanding American coinage, the 1970 D Lincoln cent holds a deeper, more nuanced significance. To appreciate this coin, one must first consider the context of its creation. The late 1960s and early 1970s were years of transition for the U.S. Mint. The nation was adjusting to new economic pressures, including rising metal costs and the end of silver coinage in everyday circulation. In this environment, the production of low-denomination coins, such as the 1-cent piece, was no longer a trivial matter. Every die, every plankett, and every press strike was subject to careful scrutiny, yet the sheer volume of coins produced inevitably introduced small anomalies, subtle shifts in strike quality, faint die doubling, and many differences in plankett composition. The 1970 D Lincoln cent is a product of that meticulous yet imperfect process. Its design, the enduring profile of Lincoln, had been standardized decades earlier, yet each coin tells a story of the moment it was struck. Slight variances in the depth of Lincoln's features, the sharpness of the date, or the clarity of the mint mark are not merely technical footnotes. For experienced collectors, these details can distinguish a coin that appears ordinary from one that quietly commands attention. It is not the immediate impact of a headline or a market frenzy, but the patience of observation, the trained eye noticing what others overlook. Condition sensitivity is a term often invoked in numismatic circles, yet it deserves careful consideration. Unlike high-relief commemorative coins, the Lincoln cent's modest design responds subtly to handling, storage, and circulation. A 1970 D cent that has passed through the pockets of a single individual, shielded from abrasive surfaces, will reveal a luster and definition that its circulated counterparts cannot match. Even minimal contact, an accidental rub, a brief exposure to humidity can alter its surface in ways imperceptible to the casual observer but immediately recognized by a trained grader. These nuances create a layered relationship between the coin and the collector, a dialogue in which the coin's history is read in every contour and shadow. For those inheriting collections, the 1970 D cent offers a quiet lesson in perspective. It is common to encounter a box of coins, each piece bearing a story of everyday commerce, yet the value of understanding often exceeds the monetary consideration. Professional grading, for instance, is less an endorsement of financial worth than a structured language for describing condition and rarity. Terms such as MS65 or AU58 are shorthand not for wealth, but for the coin's preservation, its fidelity to the moment of striking, and the subtle imperfections that differentiate one specimen from another. To navigate this world requires curiosity, patience, and a willingness to accept that attention to detail can be as rewarding as any headline valuation. Yet even seasoned collectors can fall prey to misconceptions. The notion that coins produced in the modern era are inherently common or devoid of interest is a persistent misunderstanding. While it is true that the 1970 D Lincoln cent was struck in vast quantities, numbers alone do not dictate collector engagement. Rather, it is the interplay of production circumstances, minor anomalies, and surviving condition that captures attention over time. A faint double die, an off-center strike, or an unusually lustrous example can elevate a coin from the routine to the quietly noteworthy. It is in these subtleties that the coin maintains its appeal, not through spectacle, but through the disciplined observation of those who have devoted their lives to study. Historical context deepens the narrative. 1970 was a year of social, political, and economic flux in the United States. The nation was navigating the complexities of domestic unrest, international pressures, and the ongoing evolution of its currency. Within the mint, production of decisions were influenced by both these macro factors and the practicalities of large-scale coinage. The Denver Mint, a facility with decades of operational experience, maintained rigorous standards, yet the human element of craftsmen, inspectors, and operators inevitably introduced subtle variances. These variances, invisible to the untrained eye, become the threads that connect a coin to its moment in history. Each 1970D Lincoln cent is, in essence, a fingerprint of that period, a tangible link to the decisions and conditions of a particular place and time. Collectors often speak of quiet demand, a term that captures the enduring interest in coins that do not make headlines. The 1970D Lincoln cent exemplifies this phenomenon. It is not a coin that generates media coverage or sudden flurries of attention, but it exists in a steady, attentive gaze. Those who seek it do so not for immediate profit, but for the cumulative understanding it offers insight into mint practices, appreciation for condition sensitivity, and recognition of anomalies that might otherwise be dismissed. This quiet demand is not predictable, nor is it uniform. It shifts with generational interest, availability of uncirculated examples, and evolving standards in numismatic scholarship. It is a reminder that the appeal of a coin is often found in the margins, the overlooked spaces between circulation and preservation, rather than in conspicuous rarity. Authentication, another cornerstone of careful collecting, is likewise framed not as a guarantee of financial outcome, but as a safeguard of trust. Professional services provide documentation of strike characteristics, mint marks, and surface integrity. These evaluations enable collectors to engage with the coin confidently, understanding its position relative to peers, and discerning subtle differences that might otherwise go unnoticed. The process itself is less a transaction than a conversation between the coin and those who study it, a disciplined acknowledgement that the past can be preserved with integrity and clarity. In examining the behavior of collectors over decades, one observes recurring patterns. Initial enthusiasm may focus on headline rarities or coins with dramatic anomalies, but over time, the attention often shifts to pieces that offer consistency, historical fidelity, and condition-based nuance. The 1970D Lincoln cent embodies this trend. Its interest lies not in sensational discovery, but in the measured appreciation of quality, detail, and historical resonance. The coin becomes a lens through which one can examine broader collecting practices, observe the evolution of grading standards, and reflect on the delicate balance between abundance and significance. For those approaching a collection with a long-term perspective, the coin also serves as a reminder of restraint and patience. Immediate excitement may accompany any new acquisition, yet seasoned collectors recognize that the true value lies in understanding and context. Decisions to grade, store, or study a coin are informed not by market impulse but by the recognition of its physical and historical attributes. It is in these moments of deliberate engagement that the relationship between collector and coin deepens, transforming a simple piece of metal into a repository of history, craft, and observation. Questions naturally emerge. What does this coin reveal about the minting process of its time? How does subtle wear reflect human interaction across decades? Which traits, often invisible to casual scrutiny, distinguish one specimen from another? These inquiries do not seek immediate answers in dollars or headlines, but in comprehension and perspective. They encourage a mode of attention that is both patient and discerning, fostering a deeper understanding of American numismatics and the enduring resonance of the Lincoln cent series. Even as time passes and trends shift, The 1970D Lincoln cent remains a touchstone for thoughtful collectors. Its unassuming presence invites study, its minor anomalies reward scrutiny, and its context within American history adds a dimension that extends beyond mere circulation. The coin does not shout its significance, it quietly endures, offering insight to those willing to observe, reflect, and engage with subtlety. Ultimately, the story of the 1970D Lincoln cent is not one of fleeting excitement or immediate recognition. It is a story of sustained attention, disciplined observation, and an appreciation for nuance. It teaches that the value of a coin, in its richest sense, resides not in market speculation, but in the layers of history it preserves, the subtle variations it presents, and the understanding it fosters among those who study it with patience and care. The coin is both object and record, an artifact that speaks to the craftsmanship of the mint, the passage of time, and the persistent curiosity of collectors who look beyond the surface to uncover meaning. In the quiet reflection that attentive collecting encourages, the 1970D Lincoln cent stands as a reminder that significance is not always loud or immediate. It resides in meticulous study, in understanding context, and in recognizing that even common coins can tell uncommon stories. The unassuming D mint mark, the familiar profile of Lincoln, and the subtle imperfections of each strike converge to form a narrative that is at once historical, technical, and human. It is a narrative that continues to unfold, inviting observers to consider the interplay of production, preservation, and perception over time. As decades pass, as collections change hands and grading standards evolve, the 1970D Lincoln cent maintains its quiet presence. It is neither forgotten nor sensationalized, but it endures in the attention of those who seek to understand, not merely to acquire. The coin's story, like that of American numismatics more broadly, is one of patience, observation, and the enduring dialogue between past and present. In studying it, collectors are reminded that the true richness of their pursuit lies not in instant recognition, but in sustained engagement, in the quiet discovery of details that reward the careful eye, and in the deepening of appreciation that transcends both time and market fluctuation. The year 1973 finds us in the midst of the post-war decades, a time when the United States was navigating not only economic shifts but also cultural transformations. Coinage, though largely utilitarian, was not immune to these forces. The Lincoln cent had long been a fixture of American life, unchanged in its essential design since its introduction in 1909. For decades, it had circulated in pocket change, tip jars, and cash registers, an emblem of continuity in a rapidly evolving nation. By 1973, the cent was both familiar and invisible, so thoroughly woven into daily transactions that few paused to consider the story embedded in its metal. Yet subtle differences mattered profoundly to those attuned to them. The absence of a mint mark on a coin of this period is one such detail that demands closer attention. In 1973, most cents were struck in Philadelphia, traditionally without a mint mark, though the mint had, by then, developed standardized practices to maintain consistency and quality. Small variations in strike depth, planchet composition, and luster retention could distinguish a coin that had spent decades in a purse or wallet from one preserved in careful storage. Even the gentlest scratches or the faintest toning could become points of interest for a collector trained to read a coin as a document of history. Collectors familiar with the Lincoln cent often speak of survivorship bias in relation to coins of this era. Coins that reach today in nearly pristine condition are rarer than one might assume. The majority of 1973 cents, like all circulating coins, passed through countless hands, encountering friction, environmental factors, and everyday wear. This creates an inherent narrative. The worn cent tells a story of circulation, commerce, and human interaction, while a coin of higher grade whispers of preservation and attentive guardianship. Each reflects a different type of historical record, neither inherently more valuable than the other, but each carrying information that appeals to a discerning eye. The physical qualities of the 1973 Lincoln cent invite careful scrutiny. Copper-nickel plan case of this period were generally consistent, yet minor die variations existed. Slight shifts in die alignment, the presence of faint die scratches, or minor doubling could transform an ordinary cent into an object of collector interest. Such distinctions are often invisible to casual observation, requiring magnification, experience, and, frequently, the support of formal grading. Professional grading, documentation, and authentication serve not merely as certificates of value but as systematic ways of confirming the nuances that human eyes might miss or misinterpret. In this sense, a coin's certification is less about establishing a price than about establishing a reliable record of its physical characteristics, a record that can endure long after initial interest has shifted elsewhere. The behaviors surrounding coin collecting are as telling as the coins themselves. Even in the 1970s, there were those who instinctively preserved unusual specimens, placing them in albums, envelopes, or coin holders. Others treated coins solely as currency, inadvertently introducing where that would obscure the very details later sought by collectors. Modern enthusiasts, reviewing collections inherited from previous generations, often encounter a mix of both worlds, the meticulously preserved alongside the ordinary. Each offers lessons not only about the minting process but about the psychology of ownership, of what humans deem worth saving, and of the seemingly arbitrary forces that determine which objects survive the passage of time in recognizable form. The quiet allure of the 1973 Lincoln cent also stems from its place in a broader narrative of American coinage. By the early 1970s, the Lincoln cent had become almost ubiquitous, yet mint authorities were continuously refining processes to ensure uniformity, manage metal supply, and meet growing demand. The introduction of new machinery, shifts in plankette composition, and evolving quality control measures all left subtle fingerprints on the coins produced. To the casual observer, the cent remained unchanged. To the informed collector, however, these details form a complex tapestry, a historical record embedded in copper and nickel, each coin a small node connecting to a vast network of production, circulation, and human interaction. It is easy to misinterpret the significance of these coins. Newer collectors sometimes assume that rarity is solely a matter of quantity, or that a coin without a mint mark automatically carries dramatic value. In reality, the narrative is more subtle. Coins of this era are interesting not because of immediate profit potential but because they encapsulate layers of history, human behavior, and production choices. Collectors who take the time to understand the interplay of condition, die characteristics, and provenance often find that appreciation comes less from monetary reward and more from the intellectual and emotional satisfaction of engaging with tangible history. Even discussions of condition must be approached with nuance. Terms such as uncirculated, mint state, or extremely fine are descriptive, not prescriptive. They attempt to communicate the extent of wear, the sharpness of strike, and the retention of original luster. Yet these descriptors exist within a continuum, influenced by light, angle, and subjective perception. The field of professional grading seeks to standardize these observations, providing frameworks to discuss and compare coins, but the human eye and mind remain central to the process. A coin may be technically flawless yet fail to captivate a collector's attention, while another, less pristine, may resonate due to historical context or personal connection.